So I will skip the biography. Again, thank you for the introduction. So when the organization asked me to participate as a speaker this year, obviously I said yes right away. But in all honesty, I wasn't sure what kind of subject I will speak about. And after changing my mind a few times, I decided to tackle the sustainability requirements on project and the impact that it could have on the scope and cost of those projects. So I decided, after a few versions of my presentation, to take a different angle and talk about the challenge that we, as the demolition contractor, are or will be facing in dealing with those new sustainability development initiatives that are mainly pushed by government authorities and also by new regulation across the globe. But especially, I'm going to really talk about the initiative to reuse existing materials and prioritize reuse over recycling. To highlight the issue that I find out, I will showcase 3 projects, which 2 of them I directly participated in, the other one in the aftermath. And those projects were 2 projects that were publicly tendered. And one of them is the Champlain Bridge, and the other one was a private-owned project that I work on at Delsan. I need to learn how to use this thing, sorry. Okay. And just to clarify, as I said, I'm not to talk about recycling. Recycling in the industry is well implemented. Recycling concrete, pavement, steel is something that is already established in the global demolition industry across the world. The subject is really about trying to reuse existing elements from structures and buildings with the intent to reuse them in new construction projects with, again, the intent to reduce the environmental impact of those materials, of those new projects, sorry. And to do so, as I said, I'm going to use 3 real-life projects that I worked on and in which they were including reusage of materials and the technical requirement of those projects. So the first one is, without surprise, the Champlain Bridge. I have a technical, I don't see the slides, I'm not sure why. It's only the notes. Yeah, thank you. So for the Champlain Bridge Material Reuse Program, I personally talked about that topic in 2022 in the World Demolition Summit. And it was one of the main objectives, apart from dismantling the bridge. The owner has had, at the time, a big initiative to reuse, maximize the recycling, but again, push to reuse most materials as possible. And they include the reusage of material and the technical requirement of the project. And within those requirements, we had to recover more than 120 steel elements from the main span, which we're seeing here in the picture. We also had to recover more than 50 temporary steel trusses that were installed over time to keep the structure alive. And also we recovered a lot of concrete elements for R&D purposes. I won't talk about the R&D because this is going straight to university and they're doing their study. It's not part of today's subject, but I would like to highlight that. So when you have to face with those requirements, you have to find a way to integrate all those work within your project schedule and your project cost without having too much impact on the outcome of the project. So there is actually solutions, and I've seen presentation this morning, and now also there was presentation yesterday that was showing tools. We're talking about AI, scanning, BIM models. Obviously, all those tools exist and are useful when you're trying to put in place such program as reusage of materials. It can be in infrastructure, in buildings, name it, all the possibilities are there. In the case of the Champlain Bridge, we built a beam model of the entire bridge, And we create QR coding because all those elements that needed to be recuperated for reusage had to be identified, traced, stored, and the information has to be transferred to the new owner of this material so we can reuse it properly. And obviously, we had to adapt means and methodology to first operate safely and make sure that we can actually integrate those work within the schedule without, again, too much cost. So in the next picture, it's not my intent to go into much detail because we're going to spend hours here. It's just to show you the kind of work that had to be done to actually proceed with those material collection and recuperation. So you see in the picture the white trusses. These are the 50 trusses that had to be kept. And just to perform, and also you see that we cut some of the concrete girders. The concrete girders went to university for testing, but all the trusses were, again, dismantled. These are 53-meter long trusses that are built in 6 different pieces with bracing and tensioning and bolts. So there was a lot of materials going into those trusses that need to be crate, labeled, transport, stored, and obviously the actual means and methods. It's not the mechanical way, you just shear it, you just cut it. You have to take care of the material because it has to be reused. So it was quite an extensive operation with crane work, barging, cutting. Again, you all know what it means when you see those kind of pictures. For the 150 elements from the main span, from the BIM model, we had to develop, first we have to identify those pieces, because when you're on a bridge and you look at, there's metal everywhere. And we have iron workers, starchmen, laborers, crane operators, so we had to develop that model, go on site, mark everything down, put the QR code into the piece. As you can see in the picture, we had to mark the cutting line that was fixed by the owner or the client, always with in mind that this piece needs to be reused somewhere else. So these are examples of things that we did to be able to first stay within the requirement of the project and deliver the project in time while using technologies to make sure that we actually achieve our goal. That's an example of what was looking on site. So we had a mainframe running the ME model that you can scan with your phone or any smart device on site directly on the field. You can have the access of the information of the piece that was in front of you, where it needs to be cut, where it needs to be stored, and how it's going to be managed afterward. So as you can imagine, this takes time and money. So the impact of all those works, we're talking about 6 months of work, and we spent almost $14 million in that operation. That includes everything, the crane, the actual execution of the work, the modeling, the design, the engineer, the follow-up, the storage, again, everything that needs to be accomplished to get that material ready to be reused. So that was for the Champlain Bridge. In the same area in Montreal, for those who never went in that beautiful city of mine, we basically rebuilt an entire network of highway in the last 10 years. But we still have a shitty airport, sorry. Still the case, sorry. So what you see here is what they built in early 2013, if I'm not mistaken, a bypass bridge. Because the bridge that you see on the left of the picture was out of his service life. It was deemed unsafe, so it was closed. But before closing the bridge, which was a main highway between the new Champlain Bridge and the airport, so the highway needs to stay open. So they built a temporary bypass bridge. And then they rebuilt the highway, and then 10 years later, they said, we're going to demolish the bridge because it's not used by anyone anymore. So they went out for tender, and they asked the demolition contractor to provide 2 prices. One for full demolition work, standard, as everybody here knows. You do the work the way you see it. you get the salvage from the steel, and you reinstate the land, and you leave. And the other one was a partial demo with the recovery of the 24 main girders that was composing the main deck of the bridge. And we still had to remove the abutment, the pile in the river, and all the approach that you see here in the picture. And without surprise, the owner of the bridge, which was the federal government, decided to select option 2 after the tender process. So, same situation. Obviously, there was a different means and methods. Demolishing a bridge, if you don't have to keep the girder, is much easier than if you have to salvage it. So we had to adapt the means and methodology, and the project fall into a cut and lift operation during the winter time, which is in Canada an easy time to work in. So again, as you can see in the picture here, it was quite an extensive job, a lot of saw cutting. Again, the girder needs to be protected, labeled, transported, stored at -25 into the winter. So a lot of crane work, SPNTs to transport the bridge, temporary bracing to hold everything together, and then all the concrete on top of the girder that you see had to be demolished by hand because we cannot hit the girder with a hammer. The owner stored the actual entire structure within the vicinity of the project on the land that he owned, right on the side of the highway. And the picture that you see here was taken early this spring. So as you can see, he stayed there for a while. Probably some person built a home, do some tagging on it, and it was there for a few years. So what was the impact of those initiatives for that project? Schedule-wise, the schedule was increased by 15%. We're talking about 53 working days. And the cost, the additional cost, was $4.9 million. And just to put that into perspective, the original cost in 2014, sorry, I said 13 earlier, was $50.4 million. Option 1 was tendered at 25.5, and option 2 was tendered at $30.4 million. So they spent almost as much money trying to keep those girders than to build a bridge originally. The next one is a project that we at Delsan put together. It's called the Soccer Platz. It was obviously, the name said it. It was a stadium to play soccer, an internal closed stadium to play soccer in the west part of Montreal that was shut down because the owner, I think, has some financial difficulties that we take on to demolish. Those structures are actually quite nice for those who see other structure like this in the past. These are butler building with big spans, high roof, long travel with multiple bent. There was also an artificial turf that we were able to recuperate and sell. And then we said, why not try to keep the structure? Because it could have a good value for somebody looking for something similar. And the building was built in the early 2005 or 2004, if I'm not mistaken again. So this one, since it was a private owned, obviously the general contractor that was following the work was building condos, big surprise, and they had a tight schedule, so we had to deliver this project quite rapidly. And we had to be smart about how we're going to tackle this, stay within schedules, and try to keep the structure in a way that the added value to keep that structure will cover the cost of the recovery. So as the other job, we said we're going to do a 3D model of the existing structure, because as was explained by the presenter before me, the tender package was empty, no drawings. You have to identify everything by yourself. So we did a full model of the building. There was a little annex to that building, which was only a locker room, a small restaurants, and so the people can go in and out the soccerplex. So we went on, we said we're going to mechanically demolish everything around, we're going to expose the structure, and then dismantle the structure bent by bent, store it, and try to sell it to somebody else. There's just some image of those bent. Probably you already seen that in the past. So obviously it's not a multi-million-dollar project. It was a standard demolition for our contract. We decided internally to try to keep the structure. So 300%, because it was supposed to be a one-pump project that at the end of the day took 3, so we kind of tripled the schedules. Same for the cost. The initial standard demolition cost was evaluated at $300,000 Canadian, which is a small job. The recovery of the steel was paying for most of the work. But the actual cost for salvage cost us more than $1 million. So after all of this, what's the outcome? For Champlain, you can all read it, but as of today, there's only 11 small projects that actually reuse the material that we take out of that bridge. There were absolutely no interest. The only interest that they received was somebody that wanted to make a sculpture or build clockwork, whatever, miscellaneous activities. And as of today, more than 80%, 90% of all the tonnage that was recuperated was sold for scrap steel. So at the end of the day, it's $12 million that was spent for absolutely nothing. IDS Bridge, sadly, same story. The structure was stored for more than 2 years on the side of the highway. Nobody reclaimed it. No engineer was willing to retake the girder to build a new structure. The actual renormalization of the steel was not something feasible with the actual market. So at the end, the federal government went out for tender, trying to find somebody to buy it. And there was only one bidder, Delsan-AIM, and we bought it for scrap. So again, if you remove the salvage value of the scrap, that's $4.5 million of taxpayer money gone. For the Suckerplex, sadly, kind of the same story. We fall behind schedules, and with the owner pressuring us to get out of the site as soon as possible, we were only able to recover 4 of the 13 bent. The challenge of that project is that the structure was not built to be reused. The joists were all welded together. Same for the roofing materials. Everything was stick and screwed together. So we tried manually, mechanically. We tried to cut it. We tried many different ways. And at the end of the day, it was not feasible in terms of time and schedules to actually create value for the structure to keep it. Those are a smaller number, but it's the same sad result. So you might say, what's the angle here? Sorry, I just lose my notes. Are those initiatives bad? Not at all. That's not what I'm saying today. Those ideas have good intents. And if you think about it from outside the box, it's the thing to do. We have to find a way to reuse materials. But in today's market, again, in my perspective, with the experience that I have, pushing for reusage of material, I'm not talking about recycling, just to be clear. Reusage of material is not cost efficient. It comes with a big price tag and drag and extend project schedules for low to no return. Again, that's our experience in Canada. And our investment is most importantly, have no real environmental benefit. It's even the opposite. We spend more, we create more, we transport material that at the end of the day went straight to the scrapyard. The reality is, again, in my perspective, that only government authorities will have the budget to push for those initiatives. And again, always using taxpayer money. So my suggestion is, again, it's not a magical solution, but we should keep doing what we're doing, maximizing recycling, because that's the way for today, again, in my experience, that we can actually achieve something for nature instead of pushing for something that doesn't work and costs money. But in the meantime, we need to keep pushing initiatives and work with regulators to be able to, again, maximize those recycling efforts and find a way to reorganize the way that we're building stuff. And I heard that in past presentation, even today and yesterday. We need to design for reusage. But trying to reuse something that is not designed for be reused, it's never going to work. And it's not the purpose of those buildings either. It's really the case. So there's a few exceptions. Obviously, there's positive project. I've seen a reference to other project that it actually worked quite well. But we have to be smart. It has to be well planned. And again, I'm relating to the presentation that we have before break. The owner needs to be realistic about his vision. He needs to be in line with the actual market. And if we are not creating a demand for reusage, for the reusage of those materials, it's never going to work. Because you can keep everything you want. If nobody wants to buy it or use it, it's worth nothing. It's worth scrap. That's the reality. So this is what I had. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent keynote, Simon. We have a few minutes for questions. Microphone is coming around. Please raise your hand and don't forget to tell us your name and who you are with.
Is it on? Yeah. Just a quick one. Is this not being tackled from the wrong end, in your opinion? Should we now not be designing structures, unitary structures of standard components that we are producing, components that can be reused in whatever form, and rather than to retrospectively try and make things fit that won't fit? It's going forward, we should have, just like building Lego bricks, you know, you build them in a format that they can be reused for this type of purpose. Would that not be a sensible way to go?
Yeah, that's exactly the angle I'm trying to take here, is that if we are pushing to reuse something first that there's no demand, that was not designed to be reused, you're never going to find an efficient way to reuse it within schedule, within cost, because this is why I make a link in the subject with the actual, because we're on a competitive market. Most of the time we have to be the lowest bidder to get the job. And if those are not clear and specified, then you throw yourself out of the game, and we have to work on this. And your second part is really actually what I'm suggesting. And everybody's saying the same thing, because that's my experience. I'm pretty sure that other company had the same kind of experience, that they tried to do something, it didn't really work, or it doesn't work the way that they were expecting, or it was not even, if you're not making any money, no business will pursue that thing. So we need to design new structure that you can actually dismantle it after. That's a gain. But in the other way, if I relate to the Champlain Bridge or the other bridge with girders, if as an owner or as a company you wants to reuse something, you have to make sure that you know where it's going to be used, how you have to keep it. Just not, I'm going to keep that, put it there and hope that somebody's going to take it one day. But it always never works.
Okay,
Thank you.
once again, an applause for Simon. Thank you.